It was supposed to be just another night in WWE, but what unfolded left millions of fans around the world completely speechless. The lights dimmed, the crowd roared, and a single name echoed through the arena like a war drum: Ronda Rousey. Everyone knew this wasn't an ordinary match. This was the end of an era. From the moment the announcement was made, Ronda Rousey's final WWE match, the wrestling world was thrown into a frenzy. Social media exploded with speculation. Was this really the end? Was the baddest woman on the planet walking away for good? And, most importantly, who would dare to face her in this last historic battle? The answer came with a blast of music and a storm of cheers. Becky Lynch, the man herself, the one woman who had always pushed Ronda to her absolute limit. Fans couldn't believe what they were seeing as Becky stepped into the ring, staring Ronda down with an intensity that sent chills through the arena. The two women had a history, from main-eventing WrestleMania to trading insults that blurred the line between storyline and reality. Their rivalry was personal, brutal, and unforgettable. Now it was all coming to a head. The stage was set, Ronda's final stand. Becky's chance to prove she was the greatest. One last fight for glory, legacy, and pride. "This isn't just a match," the commentators whispered. "This is a war." As the bell rang, the energy was unlike anything WWE had seen in years. The crowd erupted into chaos, chanting both women's names, split straight down the middle. Ronda charged first, her MMA instincts kicking in, launching a furious flurry of takedowns and armbars. Becky countered with cunning reversals and brutal slaps across the face that sent shockwaves through the audience. Every move was more intense than the last. This wasn't about titles anymore. It was about ending a rivalry that had defined a generation. By the end of the first few minutes, it was clear this wouldn't be a quick victory for either woman. They were holding nothing back. Ronda's face was etched with determination. This was her farewell, and she refused to go quietly. Becky's smirk told a different story. She wasn't just here to fight. She was here to end Ronda Rousey. The tension in the arena was electric. Each near fall drew louder and louder screams, and yet, deep down, everyone knew this was just the beginning of something far more shocking. Because if the rumors were true, something was about to happen that no one, not even Ronda, could see coming. Cliffhanger. But as the match intensified, a shadow was waiting backstage, and its arrival would change the entire night. Before Ronda ever set foot in a WWE ring, Becky Lynch had already carved her name into the company's history. But when Rowdy Ronda burst onto the scene, everything changed. Ronda wasn't just another star, she was a global icon, a former UFC champion, and a media sensation. Overnight, she became the face of a new era, and for Becky that was personal. Their rivalry began with words, sharp, cutting promos that blurred reality and fiction. But it was WrestleMania 35 where the feud reached its peak as Ronda, Becky, and Charlotte Flair made history as the first women to main event the biggest show of the year. Becky pinned Ronda that night, but controversy swirled over whether Ronda's shoulders were truly down. For years, fans debated who was truly the better woman. Now, years later, that question was finally about to be answered, and the stakes had never been higher. "This isn't about championships," Becky shouted in a pre-match promo. "This is about legacy. Yours ends tonight." The crowd roared as the two collided again, this time with even more venom than before. Ronda targeted Becky's arm early, wrenching it back with terrifying precision. Becky responded with a devastating disarm her attempt, forcing Ronda to scramble for the ropes. Back and forth they went. Two warriors locked in a battle that felt more like destiny than sport. Fans couldn't believe what they were seeing. Every strike was heavier, every submission tighter, every glare more intense. The commentary team could barely keep up. "This is personal," Michael Cole yelled. "This is deep." But just as Ronda began to dominate, something shifted. Becky, ever the strategist, baited Ronda into a high-risk maneuver, a top-rope judo throw. Ronda leapt, Becky countered, and the impact shook the ring. Ronda clutched her shoulder in pain. The crowd gasped. This wasn't part of the plan. Becky smelled blood. She unleashed a relentless assault, targeting the injured arm, taunting Ronda as she screamed in agony. "You're finished," Becky shouted, her words slicing through the noise. Still, Ronda refused to quit. Fueled by pride, legacy, and the weight of her final night, she fought back with furious resistance. Every kick, every takedown, every defiant glare reminded the world why she was a once-in-a-generation athlete. Yet, behind the curtain, cameras caught glimpses of movement. Figures watching the match with sinister intent. Whispers spread through the arena. Something, or someone, was about to get involved. But just when it seemed like the battle was reaching its climax, the arena lights began to flicker, and the night took a shocking turn. The tension was at a breaking point. Ronda clutched her shoulder, Becky stalked her like a predator, and the crowd's roar had reached an almost primal pitch. But just as Becky was about to deliver the final blow, darkness. The arena plunged into total blackness. For a full 10 seconds, confusion rippled through the stadium. Fans couldn't believe what they were seeing. Or rather, what they weren't seeing. Then, with a sudden crack, the lights returned, and chaos erupted. Standing in the ring behind Becky Lynch was Shayna Baszler, Ronda's former ally, her closest friend and one-time tag team partner. But this wasn't a reunion. Shayna's eyes were cold, her fists clenched. In one shocking instant, she attacked Ronda Rousey. The betrayal was savage. Shayna hurled Ronda into the steel post shoulder first, targeting the same injured arm Becky had been working on. The crowd erupted into chaos, booing louder than they had all night. "Why, Shayna? Why?" screamed the commentators. Social media exploded instantly, with hashtags like #Baszler betrayal trending within minutes. Becky looked stunned. Even she hadn't seen this coming. But as she realized the opportunity Shayna had just handed her, a twisted smile crept across her face. This was the break she needed. This was how the man would make history. Officials sprinted to ringside, but it was too late. The damage was done. Ronda lay broken in the corner, her once dominant aura shattered by betrayal. Fans were on their feet, many screaming, others sobbing. "This isn't how it's supposed to end," one sign read in the crowd. Shayna, standing over Ronda's fallen body, whispered something the cameras barely picked up. "I told you. This was never your world." Then she slipped out of the ring, leaving Becky and Ronda alone once again. But the dynamic had changed. Becky was now the hunter, Ronda the wounded prey. Yet, despite the brutal assault, Ronda refused to stay down. Gritting her teeth, she pulled herself to her feet, her face a mask of fury. This wasn't just a match anymore, it was vengeance. The betrayal had lit a fire in her that no one had seen since her UFC days. And as she stared down Becky Lynch, the arena once again shook with anticipation. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. Ronda wasn't the same anymore. Shayna's betrayal had turned the tide, and Becky was ready to finish the job. As Becky prepared for her final devastating move, the question wasn't if Ronda would lose. It was how much more she could endure before the end. The world had counted her out. After the betrayal, after the injury, after the relentless assault from Becky Lynch, most believed Ronda Rousey was finished. But champions are not defined by victories. They're defined by how they fight when everything is stripped away. And on this night, Ronda decided she wasn't leaving without a war. With every ounce of strength left in her body, Ronda roared back into the fight. She launched a ferocious takedown that sent Becky crashing to the mat. The crowd erupted into cheers. A final surge of hope. Fans couldn't believe what they were seeing. Ronda, battered and broken, was still standing tall. "This is the Ronda Rousey we remember," shouted Corey Graves. "She's not done yet." Ronda unleashed a barrage of strikes, each one more vicious than the last. Becky tried to counter, but the momentum had shifted. Even with one arm barely functioning, Ronda managed to lock Becky into a desperate armbar attempt. The crowd rose to their feet, screaming for a tap-out. But Becky, just as stubborn, refused to surrender. Inch by inch, she clawed her way to the ropes. This wasn't just a match anymore. It was a test of will, and neither woman was willing to break. Becky fought back with renewed fury. A brutal kick to Ronda's injured shoulder sent her collapsing to the mat. Becky followed with a leg drop from the top rope. 1, 2. Ronda kicked out. The arena exploded. "How is she still in this?" shouted Michael Cole. The match had transcended wrestling. It was a story of rivalry, betrayal, pain, and legacy playing out in real time. Every near fall was met with deafening gasps. Every counter drew thunderous applause. Social media was ablaze. "This is the greatest women's match in WWE history," one fan tweeted. "I'm shaking." But the relentless pace was taking its toll. Ronda's face twisted in agony with every movement. She was running on pure heart now, and even that was starting to fade. Becky sensed it. Slowly, methodically, she began to dismantle Ronda, targeting the injured arm with surgical precision. Still, Ronda refused to quit. Even as Becky locked in the disarm her, even as the pain shot through every nerve in her body, she clawed toward the ropes. The fans were chanting her name now, desperate for one last miracle. But miracles don't always come. With one final counter in her arsenal, Ronda prepared to risk everything, even her career, in a desperate attempt to turn the tide. The final moments of the match felt like a lifetime. Every second stretched into eternity as Ronda and Becky fought like warriors from another era. Neither woman could afford to lose. For Becky, victory meant proving she was the undisputed face of WWE. For Ronda, it meant walking away with her legacy intact. Exhausted but unyielding, Ronda launched her final gamble, a sudden reversal that flipped Becky into a devastating armbar. The crowd erupted into chaos. "She's got it! She's got it locked in!" screamed the commentators. Becky screamed in pain, thrashing desperately to break free. For a heartbeat, it looked like the impossible might happen. Becky's hand hovered over the mat. Fans held their breath. This could be the fairy tale ending, Ronda's final triumph before retirement. But then, disaster struck. With one last burst of strength, Becky rolled through the hold, using Ronda's own momentum against her. She flipped Ronda into a pinning combination, one that targeted her injured shoulder. The referee slid into position. 1, 2. Ronda kicked out. The arena shook. "She's still in it," cried Cole. But Becky wasn't finished. She grabbed Ronda by the hair, dragged her to the center of the ring, and delivered a brutal manhandle slam. 1, 2. Ronda still kicked out. Fans couldn't believe what they were seeing. This was beyond endurance. This was survival. Social media exploded again. "How is Ronda still going? This is insane!" Becky, growing desperate, climbed the turnbuckle. A rare risk. She launched herself into a flying leg drop, but Ronda rolled away. Becky crashed hard, and in that moment, with the crowd on their feet and adrenaline surging, Ronda seized the opening. With a primal scream, she trapped Becky in another armbar, tighter, deeper, deadlier. Becky's hand hovered again. The crowd was losing its mind. "Tap! Tap!" they screamed. The tension was unbearable. And then Becky reached the ropes. The break forced Ronda to release. The two women lay motionless, gasping for air. They had given everything. But deep down, Ronda knew what was coming. Her body was shutting down. Her arm was failing. Her dream of one last victory was slipping away. As both women staggered to their feet for the final exchange, the entire arena knew. The next move would decide everything. This was it. No more mind games. No more betrayals. No more chances. The final moments of Ronda Rousey's WWE career had arrived, and the entire world was watching. The two warriors locked eyes. No words, no gestures, just mutual respect forged in fire. Then they charged. Becky went for the manhandle slam. Ronda countered with a judo throw. Becky rolled through, delivering a stiff forearm that nearly knocked Ronda unconscious. Both women collapsed, rising again on sheer willpower. The crowd erupted into chaos. "Fight forever," they chanted. Fans couldn't believe what they were witnessing. It was more than a wrestling match. It was a living, breathing legend writing its final chapter. Ronda summoned everything she had left for one last assault. She launched Becky into the corner, delivered a vicious knee, and hoisted her onto the top rope. A superplex. Boom. The ring shook. Becky barely moved. Ronda crawled for the pin. 1, 2. Becky kicked out. Both women were beyond exhaustion now. They were fighting on instinct, fueled only by legacy and pride. Becky staggered to her feet first. She screamed, "I'm the man," and charged. Ronda ducked, but Becky rebounded off the ropes and connected with a second manhandle slam. 1, 2, 3. It was over. The bell rang. The match was done. And just like that, the unthinkable had happened. Becky Lynch had defeated Ronda Rousey in her final WWE match. The crowd erupted. Some in cheers, others in stunned silence. Social media exploded within seconds. Ronda Rousey's era is over. The man stands tall. What a legacy, what a war. In the center of the ring, Becky knelt beside Ronda. She extended a hand, and for the first time, Ronda accepted it. No grudges, no anger, just mutual respect between two of the greatest to ever do it. Ronda rose to her feet, tears streaming down her face as the crowd chanted her name. "Thank you, Ronda. Thank you, Ronda." The ovation lasted several minutes. Even Becky stepped back, allowing her rival to soak in the moment. This wasn't the ending Ronda had dreamed of. But perhaps, in some way, it was the ending she deserved. One that proved even legends can fall, and that greatness isn't defined by victory, but by the battles you fight along the way. As she walked up the ramp one final time, Ronda paused and turned back. She raised her fist to the crowd. A silent salute, a final farewell. The baddest woman on the planet was gone, but her legacy would echo in WWE forever.